Good morning and good afternoon to everybody attending today's webinar. So today we'll be taking a closer look at the European and Brazilian agro-food industry. My name is Edward Leone and I'm a project manager at the European Business and Innovation Center Network. And today I'll be the webinar's moderator. Right, we have quite a lot of different points to discuss today, but before introducing today's speakers and Enrich in Brazil as a project and its various available services, I would like to make sure that everybody here has a good understanding of how the webinar platform operates. So on this screen, here's a short introduction to the sort of webinar interaction tool. So throughout this presentation, we're really looking forward to sort of a lively and dynamic discussion. Therefore, please keep in mind and please feel free to send us all your questions, which can be done via the question box on your screen. And also, please keep in mind that when you send us your questions, we will hold on to them until the end of the presentation, and they will be answered during the Q&A session. Also, please keep in mind that we are recording today's webinar, and it will be made available in the following days. So, as an introduction to the speakers, I am delighted to welcome and introduce Maria Chirova and Tiago Tavares from Valdani Vicaro Associati, VVA. And we are also joined by Marcia Barcelos from the Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul. Right, let's move on to the next slide so we can have a closer look at today's agenda. So in today's webinar, I will start off by giving a short introduction about Enrich in Brazil and its various services that are available. And once finished, Maria and Tiago will present the impacts of the digital economy on the food chain and the CAP and the various study outcomes. Following their sort of presentation, Marcia will sort of delve into the roadmaps for food security and sustainable agriculture, and will provide some interesting insights under the Incobra project. And for those of you who are not really aware of what the Incobra project is, it was a project that aimed at sort of increasing the international science, technology, and innovation cooperation between Brazil and the European Union. And sort of following Marcia's presentation, we left a sort of 10-minute time slots so that we can have a Q&A session. All right, so Enrich's global network. And as you may see from the slide, Enrich is a global network of centers and hubs that promote the internationalization of EU science, technology, and innovation. Enrich in Brazil is not a standalone project. It's part of a broader framework of centers with 3 active centers in Brazil, China, and the United States. And all centers offer sort of similar services, which are essentially to connect European research, technology, and business organization with 3 global front-runner innovation markets, which are Brazil, China, and the United States. So our promise to the market. Enrich in Brazil's overall mission is to really sort of encourage and really facilitate cooperation in research, technology, entrepreneurship between Europe and Brazil. And we do this by supporting and empowering sort of all innovation actors along the innovation value chain. And in a sense, we're really here to sort of foster collaboration between actors from both sides of the ocean and to facilitate connections with the key objective of our center to sort of support you in finding the right entry point in Brazil or vice versa in Europe. Enrich Community. Enrich in Brazil consists of several types of members, which together represent the Enrich in Brazil community. It's a network of actors that are interested in either benefiting from or providing services in support of European research and innovation players entering the sort of Brazilian market, and like I just mentioned, vice versa, entering the European market for the Brazilians. And like I mentioned, there is indeed different ways to get involved, either as a pure beneficiary of the services that the center offers. And for instance, you can apply to become a service provider, which basically means that the organization will support the center in delivering its services. And Enrich in Brazil, through its community of trustees, aims at providing European researchers and entrepreneurs with the most suitable contacts and partners in Brazil for projects, research, development, and innovation. On to the next slide, which here we can see the service portfolio of Enrich in Brazil. And Enrich in Brazil has sort of developed a very comprehensive set of tailored made services, which include the following. So some practical information, so you can get informed, some practical information on sort of customized and general level of on doing business in Brazil and Europe. Like you saw, you can get market and research studies and upcoming events and fairs. You can get connected. You can find obviously new reliable contacts from within Enrich's extensive network. There's funding opportunities where you can discover latest funding streams available. You can get advice, customized and legal advice from experts on relevant topics in order to sort of operate successfully in the chosen market. And you can get going through sort of training sessions to get fully prepared for business in order to sort of hit the ground running, as well as secondments and workspace opportunities in key cities in Brazil and in Europe. All right, so that's it for me. We're going to start off with our first presentation, and I'm going to quickly open up Maria's and Tiago's presentation.
So I'm Maria from VDA. Welcome to everybody. Thanks for joining the webinar. This short presentation will be to give you some insight on the outcome of a project that we did for the European Parliament with the topic of impacts of digital technology in the agri-food sector. So this is just to briefly guide you through the structure of the presentation. So first we'll give some insight on the main digital trends linked with agriculture, the benefits and the challenges that they can bring to the sector. We'll briefly present the stakeholders' view and which exactly are those disruptive technology, how we try to classify them by importance of impact, and how the technology is changing the agri-food sector, with some vertical integration explanation of the agri-food value chain, and conclude with the main outcomes. So one of the main trends regarding digital technology in the agriculture sector is the fact that currently farmers and other actors in the value chain are facing a lot of challenges linked to the growing population, the growing consumption, therefore challenging environmental conditions for production, climate change, etc. And the fact is that the demand for technology in agriculture is rising because they believe that technology can support farmers and other players of the value chain to face those challenges. Then, of course, it's a trend because it helps consumers raise their awareness regarding the information they have regarding the food they purchase. Then the food trends are adapting to the consumer and the societal changes, meaning that the farmers in the production follow the demands of the new trend in terms of consumption pattern. We have increase in the integration of digitalization across the value chain at different levels, and this we'll see later how it implies. Of course, it also has an impact in the trend is that new technology also have changed the farming practices, meaning, for example, precision agriculture or automated tractors, soil monitoring, etc. And then, of course, the biotechnology, which is the very new trend that we also believe will shape the future of agriculture. So regarding the benefits and challenges, starting let's first start with the challenges then and look at them. Regarding the farmers, it's difficult for them to integrate technologies for two reasons, two main reasons. The first one is the fact that it demands a lot of investment capabilities, and especially when it comes to a very heavy digitalization or very innovative products, it's difficult for them in terms of income, in terms of capital investment to take this on board. And also they have still a lack of knowledge regarding how to use them and what exactly is the benefit that they will get by introducing new technologies in their processes. And then, of course, it's an enabler to have internet connection and a broadband coverage everywhere in order that the service and the new technologies are working and are constantly available. And this can be still a challenge even in Europe. So I suppose it's also a challenge that Brazil has in common. And then we have the governance of the fair distribution of information between the different partners. That can be challenging, especially when it comes to big players versus the small and medium-sized businesses. This is, as you can see below, potential negative impact. And of course, we have when we think about automation in new technologies, there is of course this risk of job losses. On a more positive side, when we look at positive impacts and benefits of new technologies, they're distributed across very different and all stakeholders that can take different benefits from that. So for farmers, it has a good potential to increase their production, reduce the cost of production, support their decision making, and improve livestock health, like for example using sensors or IoT devices. Then for the consumers, it gives them more information and real-time data, for example, on the origin of the product, and in the end, better quality of them. For the public authorities, especially for Europe, what is interesting to see is that it can be beneficial in terms of monitoring of the common agriculture policy, and then accurate farm and field evaluation. Then for the environment, it's also beneficial because there are new technology that allows to reduce water consumption or just create better environmental energy and climate change here. And then, of course, new technology also means new players, the introduction of a lot of startups, new technology that are also creating new opportunities for small and medium sized enterprises. Then we have a quick overview of the stakeholders view. So we have, as you have seen, for the benefits of a lot of stakeholders on different levels. We know that for farmers, suppliers, it means that new technology will make them more integrated into the farm activities. The farmers will have new practices which will increase their rentability, so they will become more profitable. For the distribution and retail sector, it's a very good benefit if we think about the fact that they can offer to their customers more information and improve the quality of the products that they're shipping. For the consumers, it's of course more information and also um, more knowledge about how the agri-food chain is working. So not only on the product itself, but basically on the entire process. Then in startups, there are a lot of collaboration around the introduction of new technology in the agri-food sector, and a lot of new startups and corporate and organization that support the startups and the SME in becoming more digital. And then for the government and the international organization, it's first it solves problems that are on the social level, but also can decrease their administrative burden and create a more easy way for the people that they interact with to make their interaction more valuable. And for the scientific view, of course, the more research we have, the more new technologies we have involved to collect data. It's a huge resource for knowledge for the scientific communities. So which are the disruptive technology? How they, what does it mean by new technology? Are they all the same? Of course not. There are many kind of different ways to apply digitalization in agriculture. We try to categorize them in different segments. So the one with very high impact, medium impact, and low impact. The high impact technologies are the Internet of Things because you can basically make a device smarter and connected by introducing sensors and thus to gain a lot of information that can be collected then analyzed by farmers but also the rest of the value chain. Another high impact technology is automation and robotization because it creates first work replace human work that can be heavy, but also create more time for the farmers, for example, to dedicate their free time on something more valuable as strategy, for example. Then we have artificial intelligence and trustability and big data. Artificial intelligence, of course, is something very new, not only for the agriculture sector, but overall. So it's something that we'll see evolve in the future. And then trustability and big data, especially important for the end user and customers. The medium impact technologies are the ones that they have a huge potential and rapid growth indeed, but their introduction in the agri-food value chain is or a bit questionable as the blockchain technology, for example, or it's in somehow already there as the GNSS, which actually gives navigation, position, and timing for the various actors in the agriculture sector. Then we have low impact. It's not because it's not important, but rather because it's already there or should be there, and it's something that we broadly use already, like the simply ICD, meaning just the digitalization of having computers rather than paperwork for reporting on the agriculture activities, to have a platform for e-business when it comes to the distribution to the consumers or end user, and of course, to make this happen, broadband networks. So here are just some examples, let's say use cases or application where technology can change the sector. So we have the blockchain technology that is used to trade goods and animals. We have virtual reality in order to educate customers how farming is happening by just showing them video 360-degree videos of how farming is done. The use of drones in order to control survey the soil moisture. We have any kind of GNSS technology that can be used for precise agriculture, navigation of tractors, or drones as well. We have artificial intelligence and robotization here for machines that you have a code that actually creates the movement of the robot and replace um, a process which is very repetitive, for example. So these are just few examples. There are of course many more, but just to see how this can really apply in a different case in the agriculture sector. So we can move on. Um, so here we just wanted to show that, so this is the agri-tech value chain. So at the top you see the value chain, as it is the traditional one is below, you actually see where new technologies can be applied and for which exactly stakeholders they can be the most beneficial. So if we look at the e-business, of course, more targeted consumers and end users, same goes to blockchain. Uh, if we go to smart farming or smart irrigation of land, of course, this is something that's used by farmers or end users. So each type of technology can be associated and targeted to different um, value chain actors. So this is my last slide. Just to wrap up the study and looking at the main disruptive drivers and trends that we have seen previously, that are the changing environment, the climate conditions, the co-inflation with also bring us to uncertain future of demand, urbanization and demand for food. And all these are drivers that makes technology introduction a very important part of the future of the agriculture sector. And this can be accelerated through different elements. First, of course, we need to have investment in R&D, because there are still technologies that are not fully operational, so the farmers can make 100%, can put 100% trust on them. Then we need to have that availability and sharing of data, because um, all these new technologies are actually very useful if we share that and we analyze it. And then we have an infrastructure that should be there, of course, and the customer acceptance of the changes. And the impacts are here just to name some. Of have um, efficiency gain in production, the changing market demands that are happening more and more quickly and in predicted ways. So technology can cope with this, and then also to create value in the logistics through the value chain. Um, Maybe our last message that it was a very positive study with a lot of positive outcomes, and we saw a large opportunities for implementation of new technologies in agriculture and agri-food sector, as you have so in different levels for different types of activities. But that said, does not mean that technology will solve all the problems of the of the world. So yeah, it's a positive message, but also means that there is a lot of work behind to be done to make it happen.
Hello everyone, here is Thiago Tavares, and I'm myself Brazilian and living in Europe, so it's always interesting to be part of this project where you can actually enhance the collaboration between the two that is very different parts of the world. And what I will present briefly is just the outcomes of a study we have done recently looking into the agriculture sector in Brazil, mostly focused on the innovation part. And why it's important to talk about agriculture in Brazil? Obviously, because it's a very important sector for the country. You can see that around 6% of the GDP is actually based on the agriculture sector, and it employs almost 10% of the active population. Also, in terms of export, it also represents about $77 billion. So this is something that highlights the importance of the sector to the country. On the other hand, there are several challenges which the country is facing, and it's related to productivity, but also environmental performance and adaptation to climate change. And digitalization can certainly be one of the elements together with innovative technologies that can actually contribute to tackling these issues. There is an ongoing agreement between Brazil and the European Union, which was signed in 2008, which actually foresee the intensive collaboration in research and innovation in several sectors, which include environment, but also agriculture. In the agriculture sector, it focuses mostly on innovation and also to improve the trade flows between the two areas. In the next slide, you can see actually one element which is very important for Brazil, which is precision agriculture. So, in fact, precision agriculture, as you might know, is a combination of several type of innovative, let's say, technologies which are used, and it's actually present in about 60% of the country applications. When you look into the why they use these, mostly the focus is on the soil condition monitoring due to the low fertility of some of the soils in the country. And basically, this technology has been adopted in the country and is growing quite fast. On the other hand, when you look at yield monitoring, this has technology that was introduced first, but on the other hand, for the moment, it's just around 5% of production, which is controlled with that. Looking now into the production, we can see that basically around 49% of the farmers use somehow some form of precision agriculture, and we see around 8% focus on the soil condition monitoring, and only 50% about the various applications. What we can conclude here also is that although Brazil is one of the countries with higher production of several grains, but including, for example, soybeans, there is still a high potential for innovative technologies that can be used in the country. And one of them is automatic steering, which you see in some neighboring countries such as Argentina with a very high implementation, but in Brazil is still a low implementation. And basically, this is one example that we have here. But in fact, as Maria was mentioning before, there are several new technologies which are being implemented in Europe and worldwide, and we see that there is a very important opportunity for collaboration and also to improving and enhancing the quality of the products in Brazil, but also the efficiency and productivity as well. So thank you very much from our side.
Thank you.
All right, Maria and Tiago, many thanks for this enlightening presentation. I will now switch over the slides and
Hello.
give control over, yeah. Okay, Marcia, the
Yes.
floor is yours.
Thanks everyone for attending the seminar. It will be a pleasure to present you a little bit of the work I did for the Incobra project in Brazil that joined the different partners. I'm a associate professor at the Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul here in South Brazil, nearby Uruguay. And the idea was really to develop a roadmap and an action plan, especially regarding food security and sustainability for agriculture, thinking about climate change and all the challenges we are dealing with. So it's really nice that we had the former presentation, and it's very much connected, the things we saw. We did this research project and many interviews and data collection in 2017. And so it's really nice if we can discuss that a little bit more. You can go to the next one. Okay, so these are very strategic areas, both for Brazil and the EU. Those are priority areas for cooperation between Brazil and EU, especially if we think about the science, technology, and innovation dialogue. As Tiago mentioned before, Brazil is a global producer, exporter of many agricultural and food products. It's one of the biggest producers of soybean, corn, poultry, beef, citrus, sugarcane, amongst others. And the challenging thing is that we still have a lot of ready to cultivate areas in the world, and without cutting any forests. So really technology is a key issue for Brazil, and cooperation with Europe and all the expertise is very important. On the other hand, we also have a very industrialized oriented system for agriculture production, very large scale as well. So this is very important to think strategically and think about projects that can enhance sustainability. From the EU side, food security and sustainability are actually very strategic. They are very important goals, and many policies are being in action currently to reduce the impacts, and of course thinking about agri-food systems, how we can supply our long-term food resources for everyone. So the idea was really to establish and to think about this scenario, how we could act. Okay, next one. So the idea was really to focus in cooperation. So how could you also benefit these different stakeholders related to food security and sustainable agriculture, and very much align with sustainable development goals that we could achieve based on that. One interesting thing is that basically when we think about the different stakeholders and the roles of these different stakeholders, we know that mainly the food system development is mainly driven by this private sector actions, a lot of investments in this sector as a response to opportunities created by changes in consumer behaviors, right? So for example, right now we are seeing an emergence of plant-based diets in Brazil. So really changing the way consumers see the way food is being produced. This is already a reality in Europe, but it's quite new in Brazil. Especially I work with in a business school, although I have a background in agriculture. but we do a lot of research with consumers awareness, consumer research, and green consumers. And this is very important because normally the public sector takes longer than, of course, the private and the demands by consumers. So it's very important to think about ways how we can collaborate to bring these demands, right? So, for example, increase of vegan population, demand for animal welfare, systems that can really follow traceability, can follow the supply chain, and of course, technology, especially information technology, is very much related to that. And I think that's a very important point for us to collaborate. So the idea is to bring the consumer close to the food they wish to consume. And of course, we need to develop and improve all the agri-food chains towards more green food systems. We need to do that also by education and empowerment. So not only for consumers, but also for producers as well, and especially for industry. Some work I'll mention later on, the development, for example, of eco-innovations and solutions involving circular economy, for example. It's very much important to think from this perspective of multiple agencies working in the food system. Next one, please. So it's critical to have the governmental role, right? And of course, we identified some critical variables for that. On the one hand, we see a higher demand for quality, for food security, but we also see low standardization of small producers, right? So, for example, in Brazil, and Europe, of course, is not different with such a large area we have in terms of terrestrial areas, but we also have very different food systems. So, for example, just to give you an idea, I'm here in South Brazil today. Probably today is the coldest day in winter so far. We are 4 degrees Celsius, and maybe in the Amazon today we have 30 or 31. So very different systems, and this of course brings also very different standardization of producers. We have some that they already have very high technology, as you've mentioned, high precision agriculture, but on the other hand, you have very small producers with limited awareness, sometimes even unable to read and how to use the internet. So the challenges are very big in the country. But we have a growing demand for sustainable products. And I think we need to develop and to foster technologies and collaborations where we can find more sustainable products. In that way, we need to update the whole system. And then we need to work together between technologies, producers, from the field to the fork, and what we do later on, also how we can use these products. Next one, please. Of course, could you go back a little bit? Just one, just to mention. One of the things that's important, and actually we try to cross in this roadmap and to see the challenges. Of course, we have a lot of bureaucracy, so we have to deal with that. Restricted funding for research and innovation when we think about economic crisis and cuts, for example, in universities, etc. This has a very big impact into science and technology. Of course, a little bit of few governmental initiatives, as I mentioned, some delay regarding the market, and of course, political and economic instability. They can be some kind of critical variables that could delay our work. Let's move on. Okay, so the idea was to define, after doing this work, we defined two main dimensions where we could foresee the future, right? So what would happen and what would be different opportunities for each one of these areas in the map. So we could see, for example, if we have high food chain sustainability or low food chain sustainability in one hand, and the other hand, if we have like low support from policies and regulation or high support from policies and regulations. This would lead us to 4 different scenarios. So the first one would be really to have an integrated food system. That would be the ideal goal. And we really hope this can come true. And I believe we have a very, very important things we can collaborate, and some were already mentioned before. We would have a green proactivity scenario where sustainability food chain would be high, but not so strong in policies and regulations. We would have also then in the orange one, like the low edge activity, where we have, okay, we are going on, we are moving with what we have in policies and regulations, but we're not very much active, we're not very much investing in food chain sustainability. And of course, the worst case scenario would be where the food system collapses, where we don't have support from policies and regulations, and of course, food chain sustainability will not move on in this system. So we can more or less imagine different strategies and different cooperation actions we could do in each of the cases. Okay, next one. So in the case where we have the integrated food scenario, it would be very interesting to think about food security and nutrition, tools that could help us to have more supply chain integration, and of course, transparent food systems. So as mentioned before, we have many technologies and we have many options that could help us to move this way, like the blockchains, like Internet of Things, different systems, big data. All of this could be very much integrated. And of course, then let's think about Brazil. You have nowadays already some realities where integrated food systems are a reality, and they could be easily applied or are already in course in this one. Okay. On the second scenario, where we have the green proactivity, it's very important because this is the case where we have the chances for the startups, okay, for open scenario for entrepreneurship. Because here they are more advanced. Let's say that the food chain is more advanced than the policies and the regulations. And this is happening. We have a very interesting move in Brazil nowadays with the food tax. We've been recently studying, for example, some food tax on reduction of food waste, and this is happening in Brazil. And of course, for these ones, for these first movers, normally young people connected to universities with different backgrounds as well. So they really need solutions and training, and especially support, financial support, to development some of the apps and solutions they're using. Many regarding, for example, reducing the use of agrochemicals, for example, that would be something very important. And so this is, it's very interesting. We really want to seek potential markets that have higher standards, to bring more rigorous practice, also to move above what local legislation says. So this is really an open stage for many opportunities here, and really exploring niches of finding solutions that are not the usual. This is would be an interesting idea, right? Also to increase, for example, mobility between researchers. We have many partnerships happening, brainstorming, sharing founding projects, establishing like the green mindset. And I think this can easily be done by communication, by joining, by contact, by network. And this is very nice because I think Enrich could certainly help a lot in those different scenarios. Then we have, the third one, third scenario is the law edge activity. In this scenario, we have policies and regulations, they are effective, but the food chains develop a minimal activity effort to follow sustainable results. Okay, so of course, we really need, if we want to move to improve the scenario, we really need to go towards food security, towards high quality, to push the system, to bring legislation and discuss that. So, for example, recently we've been doing with the sector of recycling products and reusing products, circular economy as well. We still don't have all the legislation we need for that, but certainly we can start with the technologies to improve this process, right? And of course, in this scenario, is not very good because we don't have too much stimulus on eco-innovations. And so it would be interesting to think about a solution, because in this case, many small producers could run out of business. Okay, this would be a very active scenario for competition. And of course, when you don't have so much support, maybe we have the risk of running without. And in the fourth scenario, of course, that would be the worst ones, weak food chains, absence of policies and regulations, negative effects on the nutritional diet, because in this way we don't have so much control on the food we're eating. We are not very much worried about that, and mainly about volume and not so much about quality. So this is absolutely important that we do have, for example, especially contacts between people, research and innovation, try to have actions in Europe to fight this system, to avoid lack of transparency, opportunistic behavior. And it would be very, very important to have a more strong connection, especially in the level of legislation and combinations. Next one. So basically, when we did a study, two main clusters emerged in terms of opportunities for cooperation. Cluster one would be especially regarding food security, South-North cooperation, traceability, zero food waste, improvement of agriculture production systems, digital farming, and plant-based and new protein sources. On the second one, really some ideas came also, but not so much focused on production, but especially on the climate change sustainability, right? So we would say we had two main areas where we could think about. And this second one would be really thinking about nutritional aspects, how we can think about the climate is changing and how can we ensure people will have the calories they need, more productivity being sustainable, integrated agri-forest livestock systems. This is a very interesting solution for Brazil. Low carbon agriculture, some support here from government inclusive. We need, of course, to lower emissions of green gas emissions, precision agriculture, and using circular economy also to reduce the environmental impact. Next one, please. Okay, so I do have 2 minutes more or less, and that's a very challenging figure. I left you. We had last year a very interesting conference here in Porto Alegre with more than 1,000 participants developing and discussing the future of agri-food systems. So where are we going from very different perspectives? And this is actually one of the things we discussed. So where to start? We have many different issues, right? If you take from this view, you can think about terrestrial or aquatic systems, value chains, consumers, civil security, food security, policy, governments. And if you see science and technology, they are all around. Okay? And certainly we need to think about solutions. I think Brazil is evolving rapidly, not in terms of productivity, that in the last 10 to 15 years, it's amazing what happened in the sector. From a net importer, we became one of the largest importers of many different agricultural products in the world. But I think now it's really the time to move towards quality. And I'm pretty sure the view Europe has this positioning of taking care of the environment, taking care of people, and we certainly will benefit from this model. And I believe we can share many different things. And thanks for your attention. And I'll be happy to discuss with you different questions. Okay.
Thanks a lot, Marcia. This was indeed a very enlightening presentation. I'm just trying to switch slides back to mine. Okay, so first of all, I want to thank today's speakers. presentations were, really good, and I really hope that this was very useful information for everyone who attended this webinar. So we have a couple minutes left. So I suggest we start with our sort of Q&A session, and we'll try and answer as many questions as possible. So without any further delay, let me take the sort of first question. And I believe that would be a question that would be targeted, well, to any speakers, but maybe more Maria and Tiago. It's more about sort of how to tackle the lack of knowledge of sort of small scale farmers regarding the sort of potential benefits of digital farming. I think there's an overall lack of knowledge, but maybe there's ways of sort of improving that.
Yeah, so there are different steps toward this. So if we look at the more innovative way, so usually startups and companies that are new to the market, when they offer the service or the product that is so-called innovative, it goes with also training sessions and a kind of initial support toward the first trial of the product or the new way of processing. And then if we talk a bit more general, so there are European initiatives that create by the way, EBN as well, which creates these kind of clusters and also centers where education towards innovative technologies are happening. And then the more clusters you have, or communities of farmers, the easiest the way to share information and knowledge together. And there are also several platforms that are organized in which different communities of farmers can enter into contact with other farmers and exchange practices and any kind of feedback regarding the new technologies that they use. I hope this answered the question.
Yeah. Well, fantastic. And maybe we can move forward with a second question. And I think it's about the sort of areas in Europe in which sort of broadband and internet coverage might not be so well distributed. I sort of a question on how to overcome this potential challenge for digital farming.
Well, it's a challenge that it's on national and European level. It's not a challenge that unfortunately can be overcome by the farmers or the farmer suppliers. It's something that should be organized in terms of infrastructure. So if we look at Europe, there is still places with very remote areas where connection is not very good. So even though the farmers subscribe to a internet connection or on a Wi-Fi, it can be difficult to use it, and therefore the system, the new technology, is not working at the full potential. And if we can take an example, in Eastern European countries, this is still quite of a challenge.
Okay, well, thank you, Maria. Let's move forward with a third question. I've received a question asking the deadline for the Incobra project. Maybe Marcia, if you could reply to this one, please.
Yeah. Incobra, I think it's already finishing because let me see. I can check. I don't have the precise information now because we already had many different partners, many different meetings. Okay, it was a project. Let me see the dates. We have already events in Brazil and in Europe. Many action plans were already happening. Let's see. We had some. Let's see where we have. Yeah, if you go to the website, okay, at least I'm checking here the Cobra EU, you already have some many different presentations because we had just to give you a feedback, okay, food security and sustainability or adaptation to climate change was one of the key areas, okay, of the focus areas. We had another one on green energy, another one of sustainable use of bioresources, another one about nanomaterials and manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, and one about intelligent cities and intelligent systems. Okay, so they were all happening simultaneously. And at least from our part, the one from food security, we finished it and presented all the roadmaps. And so now they have these events happening in different places, trying to give follow-up from this main planning that we had in 2017. So because I was a consultant at the time, right? The main partners are in São Paulo. The coordinator is in São Paulo, so they are leading more or less this team. Okay, but let me know if you have any questions later on. You can send me your email, and I'll pretty sure send you more accurate information on that. Okay. What we know is that we keep open for collaboration, and we keep receiving the newsletters, etc. But I think the project will certainly move with vision to 2020 to a new stage.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Marcia. That's obviously very valuable information, and I hope that answers the question from one of the attendees. Maybe moving forward to, and I'm very sorry I won't be able to take all the questions, but yeah, moving forward to a question from Marcia, and it's mostly based on your sort of involvement within the Incobra project. Would you say that Brazil and the EU have a sort of common approach or vision for sustainable agriculture food production? And could be also very interesting if maybe Thiago, or maybe you have some knowledge with regards to that, so you could share some insights as well. Yeah, so if the EU and Brazil have a sort of common and vision for sustainable agriculture food production.
Yeah, that's a tricky, challenging. I mean, tricky question. Right now, we are living in a period of transition in Brazil, of governmental transition. So, of course, now we are still, let's say, the new government is changed a little bit. The Minister of Agriculture changes the Minister of Environment, but certainly we have a general feeling, especially in the academia, companies related. Even part of the population, the more well-educated population, this is already a reality, right? So everybody knows we can move forward with the way we were producing before. And this was, of course, a question of development of the country, right? So in the 70s, Brazil had a lot of incentive from government to develop a very strong industrial system, to go to very high intensive agriculture. And we feel the impact of that nowadays, right? So we moved from central area Brazil, okay, so São Paulo, Rio, Mato Grosso, we went up north, okay, producing a lot. In the south, we had a lot of already developed areas because of the influence of Italians and Germans, the immigrants, they came, also Dutch people. So a little bit different scenario. But I think it's a reality now, and we are certainly aligned, and I think we really need to be together in that. And we believe, of course, Brazil has a lot of also relations with US that's not perhaps so strong or give so much attention to the environment, but we certainly feel that it's absolutely necessary that we share the same views with Europe. Okay.
Yeah, I fully agree with this point, and I think one of the key elements that we can also look at is, of course, if you look the policy that you have in Europe, I think the European Commission, for example, plays an important role in trying to push for this let's say, sustainability aspect, which is something that is not necessarily related to a specific country need or a specific country support, but rather as a community, which is something that in Brazil, I think is not that strong. But also in Europe, if you look into the different countries, they have different realities, right? And of course, it's difficult to compare, let's say, developed countries with other countries which are still developing and still promoting innovation internally. So I think Brazil is not yet there, and there is still things that a lot of things can be improved in relation to how you can actually have a sustainable agriculture and improve productivity by controlling better let's say the production. And but as Marta was mentioning, I think it's towards that direction, and we can see also the change on the perspective of people, and hopefully that will become something closer into this mindset as well in the future.
Okay, well, thanks a lot for this for these answers. Unfortunately, we're a bit restricted in terms of time, so I will now move forward to the last slide of today's presentation, and it's mostly to sort of say that, you know, if you do want to receive regular updates, information about Enrich in Brazil, and all our upcoming events, services, webinars, please do feel free to follow us on social media. And you'll receive all the latest updates regarding the project. I'd like to thank all the speakers today. This was a great presentation, a great topic. The discussion and the Q&A was lively. So I would like to thank all the attendees, speakers once again, and that's it for today's webinar. Big thank you, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Have a nice day, guys.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.